Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jaynky to the Max, a podcast where we talk about amazing inspirational creations and their amazing creators who make them. Today on the show is super exciting. We got Mech, who's going to be talking about his Mech. With me in the virtual studio is my fantastic co-host, Glavin. Hi.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Glad you could join us today.
If you've not already done so, hop on our Discord server. It's you can see it at jaynky.com. It's also going to be a link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow our Twitter, all that jazz. We're going to start a new feature to this week, which I'm pretty excited about. We're going to have, instead of answering your questions throughout the show as they come up, we're going to have a Q&A session at the bottom. So if you have a question, and if you're in the live stream, if you're listening to this after the fact, sorry, this won't apply to you. But if you're in the live stream, make sure to tag all your questions with the podcast rule so that we can all see them. And then we're going to ask them at the end. Keep those questions coming as you think of them throughout the show. So it will be a lot more fun. And then coming up in April, there's going to be Space Month, which it's going to be an entire month where each guest is going to talk about is involved in some way part of the space industry. So that is going to be so much fun. And a little intro for today's guest. One of the things that I think is just so great about this community is that we really don't care how crazy or seemingly impossible something is. We just go for it. It's like, I love it, and I love these inspirational projects that are just so incredible and inspiring. And anyways, without any more monologuing, welcome to the show, MechWorks.
Thank you, Jay, for having me on.
No problem. So tell us about your Mech. Give us a full rundown.
Well, this is actually my second Mech. Technically, I guess you'd call it. And the development of it is not exactly linear. It's a bit of a mess. Because I started out in, when was it? 2016, figuring out I was pretty much trying to figure out something like some guys already did, but cheaper. There were these guys called Skeletronics. They were a bit of an internet thing about, 2013 they first came out. They had this kind of mechanical suit, which would, like a pair of stilts and a pair of arms that would mimic your movements. Yeah, kind of like that. And they were, running it around and stuff, and they said, yeah, we'll sell ours for $50,000. And one of my brothers kind of cheekily said, hey, can you build this cheaper? And, well, I sat on it for a while.
You Elon Musked it.
Yeah, I sat on it for a while, and while I was browsing, Pinterest, I came across this one, sketch someone did of a exosuit. And, some of the support frameworks had, some 135-degree angles and some 90-degree angles in, sort of a cylinder shape. And I was looking at it, and I thought, wait a sec, that looks like PVC. I could build it out of PVC. Aha!
That would definitely cut down the cost.
Yep, because PVC, you can get 10 feet of it for $3. So.
Exactly.
It's pretty nice. I came up with a prototype and actually did get a little bit of a, what would you call it? Kind of like a sponsorship with a makerspace in 2017, but they were going through a change in management at the time, so they only kind of let me in, I think, rather grudgingly. Because, 2017, the aftermath, there was the politics of the time, So, I'm not really mentioned anywhere in their records. I just slipped under the radar in that regard. But I actually made a lot of the parts for my current big robot Marduk, which is, like a actual mech. And, working with all these big parts, I was hoping to make, like the big door and stuff more of a suit. But I was like, this is too big and unwieldy. I'll try to make something smaller, dial back a bit. And so I started work on a more Skeletronics kind of shaped thing. And that took me about a year, I'm saving up, going through all sorts of different iterations, and I finally got a sort of suit that I nicknamed Judd McStud.
that name has so much meaning packed in it. Oh, you should post a picture when you get the chance.
Yeah, I'll be sure to. I've also got like a hilarious little video of like one of my first tests. I'm standing up in the suit, and it's kind of a little wobbly. And so I then later recorded like some context saying that the giant robot got drunk. So it's like, dude, you drank all of these. How are you still alive? So because I had like a box of 2 months worth of like beer, so I was like, hey, I could use this as a funny video. I was doing some work with that. I did try to get another sort of sponsorship with more like getting people to help you build stuff. Again, at this same makerspace, but it was different people hosting it at like one of the local universities. And some of the other teams there had some cool stuff. Like there was this guy who had like a Rubik's Cube Scrabble game, and these people who had a generator where you could pretty much charge your phone by walking. There was like a little loop that would go down to your feet, and you pull on the loop and then do the charging up of a battery, which was pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I did.
And then you walk in, and then you walk through the doors with this giant mech, and everyone drops what they're doing and just circles you.
Well, the thing is, I didn't bring it with me, but I did have the pictures up, and unfortunately, I didn't have Marduk even really built at the time, so I just had little Judd McStud. And like some of the comments were like, "Oh, that's just a puppet," and even though I said exactly what I wanted, what I was there for, the people were like, "Why are you even here?" So I was like, "Well, I mentioned in my slideshow this, and this," and I was like thinking, okay, I probably won't win. But what was really funny is that the guy who did win was the cheapest, easiest thing they could have chosen.
What was it?
Cardboard pinball machines, and I don't mean any offense to him, but that wasn't. It's a cool idea, but
yeah. Was it? Did he execute it really well? Like, was it an execution thing?
It was okay. I mean, their main reason behind it was, something for kids, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, that. I mean, I feel like an awesome walking robot is a bit better than that, but you know my vendetta against college. Anyway.
Yeah, well, this was like their instrumentation department of their university, so you go in there talking about giant robots, and you don't actually have something you can sit down and scare people with. They're a little.
Yeah.
So prototypes on paper were a no-no, basically.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, the similar principles I used in Judd McStud for his arms, I actually used in my big one, Marduk, but just scaled up.
Okay. All right. So you enter this. Was it a competition?
It was something called like Pitch It, Fab It, or something like that. So you can get like you can get up to like a bunch of help designing stuff, and I think I might actually be submitting again because I've been working on a widget which would, frankly, kind of change the landscape of robotics somewhat, because you could, instead of using a bunch of little motors to power your robot, all right, you can then just use one big motor then just use this widget to individually control it out to various sources. So it's kind of like
Oh, wow.
the mechanical gear work equivalent of like a what would you call it?
Like a
A
differential?
hydraulic system, but without hydraulics.
Oh,
Oh, that is so. Did it like even need any? Like, how would you be able to control when to like move an arm and when not to?
Well, with this widget I've been working on, I've been faffing around with some of the names. There's like a power transmission matrix, power distribution matrix, power distribution array, more or less variation of the same thing. And changes power. So it's pretty much you just flip a move a little lever and it'll reverse the turning of your output axle without changing your input axle's rotation. So you could literally like take a gas motor, stick it on there, and then make it go back and forth, on multiple points. So you can control a robotic arm with a gas motor.
That is so great because that motors are one of the most they aren't the most, but they're a very expensive aspect of a lot of projects, and that's always the dream, to be able to reduce the motor count.
Mm-hmm.
That is incredible. So you develop. So you after you get home from the competition, you work on this this power distribution matrix, and then you start working in Marduk.
Yep. The timeline is a little wobbly, but you do have the general idea, yeah. Started working on Marduk because I was thinking, it's a bit of a pain in the butt to be schlepping around Judd McStud. I don't like bot that I can be lazy with. I can just sit in there. Oh?
I think you're cutting out here and there.
Oh. Yeah, I'm getting a disconnected notice.
Oh no.
RTC disconnected?
Should you want to disconnect and reconnect? Just
that might be a good idea. Probably the little phone button.
Yes, with the
Okay.
X top. But
Sorry about that. 1 second. I'll be right back, hopefully.
stay tuned as we work through these. Oh, there we go.
There we go. That better?
Oh,
There
yeah.
we go.
All right, fantastic. So where were we?
Sorry about
Gotta love Discord. So you start working on Marduk. That's the part where you cut off.
Yeah, where was I going with that? Well, Marduk is pretty much like the lazy giant robot, I guess, because I don't have to support the weight, to hold it up. I can just sit in it, drive it around like a car, which makes it a lot easier, because then all I gotta do is focus my really my physical effort on moving the arms, because they're like all mechanical. So relying on the pilot's strength to move the arms does mean it can't lift a car or anything, but because of how leverage works, you can get actually quite a punch.
Right. Wow. So the arms, you like pull a lever, or like how do you control them? Like that seems like, because there's a lot of motion that you have to account for.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the anime Gurren Lagann?
No, I have not.
Well, in the probably some people listening might know of it, and like in the giant robot, it has like to control the arms, these sort of like little arms inside the cockpit. Also, like the Method 2, I think it is, by a Korean company. I forget their name. But it's essentially kind of like Waldo arms. You've got a little arm that you move inside the cockpit, and then the big arm mimics the movement.
Oh, yeah. Almost kind of like, there's another anime out there, Appleseed, that kind of does something similar.
Yeah, kind of like that, except my arms are inside the cockpit and not hanging out for anyone to poke.
Right.
And
Wow.
the arms are the only really manual part, because the torso actually rotates with a linear actuator, and the steering is power steering also with linear actuators. I was actually put on to the idea by someone on my YouTube channel. He suggested, hey, why don't you try linear actuators used for like massage tables and stuff. They're really cheap, and I've made an arm out of them. So I was like, okay, I'll buy one, and checked it out, and I was like, I could power this with a car battery. So I've got
I love how where your mind goes as far as, ooh, I can do this cheaper. I can do this better.
Yep, I've
so
got
beautiful. It's so beautiful.
I can mention the whole spiel behind that after I talk about the development and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay.
Okay, so
keep going.
Started getting the linear actuators on, and fiddling with those. It's like how do you control a linear actuator? There's like all these companies. They say you've got all this stuff to like control them and stuff. And I was just looking and thinking, they probably make automotive grade switches. So what I essentially just have to make the linear actuators go back and forth is a simple double pull, double throw switch. So you switch it one way, the polarity goes one way. Switch it the other way, polarity goes the other way. It's like a manual H-bridge motor controller, pretty much.
Nice.
So it's pretty cheap.
It's janky. That's what
Yep.
it is.
It's pretty much I'm trying to work out how to make a giant robot with the least amount of money.
So how much do you think it, like, if say one of our listeners wanted to build it from the ground up, how much do you think it would cost?
Well, it depends where you get your snowblower.
So are you powering this with like a two-stroke snowblower engine?
Actually, it is driven. Only the forward and backward motion is controlled by the snowblower engine. And I actually ended up throwing the rod on the original engine, so I got like a Harbor Freight $100 special.
This is amazing.
So does it only work in the snow?
Well, I've been trying to drive it in the snow. I've got a few videos on my YouTube channel. Unfortunately, the way I have it, the mech kind of tilts a little too far forward, about, 7.8 degrees forward. I did the trig to calculate it out, so you can actually use high school geometry in real life.
Yes.
Yeah,
I knew it wasn't for a reason.
For those of you going through high school right now, this is the use. Building mechs.
Yep.
Exactly.
I mean, even though I did have some engineering in college, not using much that I learned from it, except maybe ordering parts from McMaster Car.
So besides
even then, I ended up not using the parts.
So besides the snowblower, like for the rest of the mech, the body of it and everything, like about how much would that end up costing someone if they wanted to build that?
Well, I haven't exactly got the price in front of me, but if you also had to get a snowblower used, it would cost probably at the most $2,000.
Oh, it's not bad at all.
That's incredibly. That is impressive to get that kind of.
Yeah, because a lot of the structure, it's like PVC and lumber and the metal skin on it. That's just like thin aluminum flashing you get at Home Depot or any other home improvement store. Other home improvement stores are available.
Nice.
I bet the people at your local hardware store know you by name.
Definitely at Aubuchon's. I don't mean to try to promote their brand or anything, but they are the only people who have machine screws in the quantities I need at a good price. Because you can get 23-inch machine screws for $4. No one else has that price or that brand of machine screws. So at one point I showed them a video and they were like, "That's what you're doing here. Wow, that's pretty neat."
I can guarantee you that was the coolest thing that those machine screws probably would have ever been used for.
For sure.
So,
I can't count out how many packages I've bought. It's like a big stack. I don't know.
So you were saying your development process is in bits and pieces. Does that mean like you focus on, okay, I'm just gonna work on the torso today, or I'm just gonna work on the arms, or is it more like work on the arms here, work on the torso, work on the legs? Like, what's kind of like your process?
No, well, it was kind of an interesting process because I've actually had Marduk's arms kicking around since like when was it? 2017. I first built Marduk's arms, so that was like part of my initial mech attempt. And then I had the parts like sitting in the back shed for a couple years. So, and then I figured out the joys of PVC cement.
Ooh, that's
Which
I can
made
imagine.
is a lot better than Gorilla Glue. I can tell you, I'm regretting using Gorilla Glue because parts of the arms are like finally falling off, and I'm like, darn.
Well, it's good to discover all this stuff in the prototype stage.
Yeah.
How does it? I'm still not. So so you just got a snowblower, and this like the same propeller. It's a worm screw. I live in the no snow zone, so I'm not familiar with snowblowers.
How snowblowers work is they've kind of got like a I think maybe the correct term would be a constant variable transmission. I mean, it's sort of like how it changes the gears is you've got like your main like drive wheel spinning that comes directly from the engine, and then you've got another wheel that is parallel to it, or no, perpendicular to it. That when you pull on like the clutch arm, it then pushes the rotating wheel into the perpendicular one.
And depending on how far it's moved onto it, determines the speed.
Well, it can move pretty fast. It depends because I have a cable running from the cockpit all the way down to the transmission stick shift. I literally just have like a couple wires hooked onto the snowblower's transmission. So the leverage isn't exactly worked out just right. You can go forward and backward, but can't take advantage of the full extent of the snowblower's what the snowblower can do. But it can move at a walking pace. I was once showing it to one of my brothers, and the clutch lever was a little hinky in the cockpit, so I tried releasing it, and the mech wouldn't stop. So I was yelling out to him, push the button, flip the switch, and he's like, what button, what switch? And then I hit a tree. And he finally stopped it.
That must have been so comical. It's just Max slowly lumbering towards the tree.
Yep. Push the button, flip the lever, which button, which lever, there's so many.
This thing doesn't have any brakes on it yet.
Yeah, that's a bad thing. I did try putting some brakes on it, but since I had to overhaul like the steering system, I've had to like remove the brakes for now, and now I pretty much got to hope I can engine brake in order to stop the mech.
Oh boy! See, that's your next step though. Get like a V8 engine on there, that sucker. Put like the biggest wheels you can find.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Whoop, I'm getting the RTC disconnected thingy-majig again.
We can still hear you just fine so far.
If you can still hear me, just let me know when you can't hear me. Then I can reconnect. Maybe it's just Discord being hinky again.
Yeah. So, how much of it, how much? I'm just curious, like percentage-wise, how much of it is it just like costume and decoration, and how much does it actually work? Like the arms work, the legs obviously don't walk, but they work. Like the head, I take it that's like cosplay, or is that like actual, not cosplay?
Aesthetic, or is it actually functional?
Yeah,
decorative.
That's the word. Decorative. Yes.
It depends on what you mean by decorative. I mean, what does a head really do? If it is a place for the eyes, I do have a camera inside of it.
Oh, so that helps you like with steering and like. Oh wow, that's a.
Yep, I can got like a Raspberry Pi cam in there. It's mostly the camera system is like Raspberry Pi based, so I've got like a little Raspberry Pi hanging out in there. Then I have got like a wire going all the way up into the head, and then I have a large, large-ish monitor. I've got just like dangling inside the cockpit, so you can see out of it with like like a giant robot.
Nice. Almost reminds me of like Titanfall. Like if you played the game Titanfall, it has like the screens in there.
I've got like all sorts of like little GUIs on like the display, a little targeting reticle. I've got like some Raspberry Pi information like the temperature, the time, the date, CPU usage, and I was looking into I think it was the MCP3008 chip, which allows for analog input for the Raspberry Pi, and I do have it set up so it can like get like a reading of where the head is rotated, or if I wanted to, which direction the wheels are rotated with a variable resistor, but I've been too lazy to try to connect it up, so.
Sounds like a good plan for a future project.
Yep, but when it comes to like the steering rotation, it actually just whipped up a quick like 3D printed gauge, which I've got like a modem cable going from the gauge directly like all the way down to one of the wheels. So when the wheel pulls on the wire, it like moves the indicator. So you know generally which way you're steering.
Nice.
Oh, how to give us a sense of how big this is? Yeah, well, how big is it?
Well, last time I measured it, it was about 11'10", I think.
Woo!
But when I make the adjustment to make it so it stops leaning forward, I might lose a few inches.
Do you have an idea?
But
generally the weight.
It is just about as big as Karatos. But the last time I weighed it, it was before I added the rotating base on the bottom, which is kind of like really mushing two mechs together, pretty much. So, back before I added the base, it was about 175 pounds, so weighed a little more than me.
Wow.
And I'm guessing the wood base that I added to it is about 75 or 80 pounds, so... And then adding the engine to it, that's another 30 pounds, and you're probably gonna get upset because I didn't get the math quite right, but it's roughly 250, 275 pounds total, minus a pilot.
Nice.
That's
it's a nice
really
lightweight.
light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, 250 pounds?
About. I haven't weighed it, but I do know that if I gotta like shift it slightly, that I can like grab like one of the legs and pull it up. So it doesn't weigh too much.
That is unbelievable.
But
So,
I'm always concerned about it falling on me. So
Have you ever had it actually fall over or tip?
only when there was like really insane windstorms, because I'm like a couple miles from Lake Champlain, so you get like a lot of wind building up across the lake and down out of the Canadian plains. It can pick up sometimes quite intense. It's tipped over really twice, and I've used my van to like pull it upright.
Wow.
There was this one time though. It was when I was putting the top half on the bottom half, and I tried to see if I could put the two halves together, then use my van to pull it upright, and you can imagine how well that went. I forgot to put a nut on the hip's axle, so when I tried to pull it upright, the thing just folded in half around the middle.
Oh no!
Oh no!
And it was like, oh dear. What happened and what went wrong? And I'm like, oh, I forgot a nut.
Did it break anything? Did you have to go back to the drawing board on this and like rebuild that component?
I haven't had really to go fully back to a drawing board in quite a while, because last time I probably went back to scratch was when I was still trying to figure out the arm system, really. And with the Skeletronic system, they've got this like crazy daisy chain of levers and pulleys to get the movement from the Waldo elbow to the larger elbow. I looked at it and was like, yeah, no, even though there's pictures of your mechanism, that's too complicated for me. I'm just going to use Bowden cables. So, it's like a bike, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
For both the big one and the little one.
Oh, smart. So, in this whole experience, I mean, you're building it, testing that sort of stuff. What is your favorite reaction you've seen from someone, and what's your least favorite reaction?
Well, probably one of my favorite reactions is I was like selling some keychains at a local haunted house event, and I was playing some video of Marduk, like the big one. And I was had brought Judd McStud with me and was, standing up in them, waving at people. And someone looked at the video of Marduk I showed, and they're like, that's not real. And I'm like, yes, it is. Go ahead and look on my YouTube channel. Here's a card.
Oh, that is amazing. I feel like that's the equivalent of being called a hacker in a video game when you're so good at it, But what's the least favorite reaction you've gotten from someone?
Well, it would probably either be those fellows asking, why are you here at this Pitch It Fab It thing? Either that or something that just actually happened this morning, which is kind of hilarious, talking about it a bit before the podcast. So I was looking into getting into displaying at a convention, my giant robot, and I've done a couple conventions before, and I've had no problems. But this one convention, they're saying, you need insurance in order to even let us have you see the user agreement to sign up to show off at this convention. And I'm like, you won't even let me see the contract for this. I'm not going to spend money on insurance if it isn't required in the contract.
Oh, man.
Because on the terms of service that you can access, it's through a third party called and they say, yep, but purchasing a ticket, you agree that any risks that happen in this event, as long as you're notified of them, you take them on your own. So if there's a risk of you getting maimed or dying, that's on you. You can't blame anyone but yourself. That's what it says when you get a ticket, but the guys who are actually running the convention are like, that's not our terms, so...
Oh, goodness.
And they won't even let me see a contract, so I'm having to work around talking to the venue people themselves to see if I can get a copy of the contract from them before I even agree.
Oh, gosh.
It is a big mess of legal beagle stuff, I tell you.
Seems kind of crooked that they wouldn't have the contract be openly available, because, you have to sign it anyways before you actually get the insurance, right?
Yeah, they told me, well, let us know when you're about to buy the insurance, and we'll give you the contract. And I'm like, really? Yes, let me see the contract first.
It's like they don't want you to shop around or something.
Yeah,
Mech insurance these days is very competitive.
Yeah, well, I bet the mech insurance industry has suffered a bit of a loss with Megabots shutting down.
Yeah. There's actually Matt, the one guy who's really left on it. He came out on a podcast a little while ago, talking about the behind the scenes stuff, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah. I followed them short. Like I remember a while ago when it was more of a big deal. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I think I was telling Glavin this. I feel like they have had an amazing idea. I just feel like they were too early.
It is partially that. From what I understand, the Mark II or Eagle Prime, it was kind of unreliable, but they could get it running, they could drive it in circles, move the arms, that sort of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when they went to challenge Suidobashi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Suidobashi had them sign a non-disclosure agreement, so they couldn't talk about Karatas at all. And what happened was, eventually they got to the point where Megabots went to Japan to fight Karatas. Megabots had to pay Karatas like $200,000 just for them to show up.
Wow.
Whoa.
And then it turns out that, Karatas can't turn. It can only drive in straight lines.
Oh, no.
So they literally were getting out like crowbars to turn Karatas so it would be in a different position. And it took 2 weeks for them to film the fight.
Oh, no.
2 weeks to film a 25-minute fight, and,
Oh, no. That's...
I'm like, guys.
We need people like you, MechWorks. We need to build our own mechs from Harbor Freight and then fight them against each other. Let's do this, people. Listeners, if you're out there, if you got $2,000 and you're close to a local hardware store, let's do this.
You can do it if you study my videos enough, you can probably figure it out. But I am hoping to, over the next year or so, make like a how-to book.
Oh, yeah.
So, people can do their own and also probably put in like some philosophical ramblings I've, thought about while building a giant robot, because... talking about philosophy and giant robots is like mandatory.
Hey, hit us with a Zen quote you came up with.
A Zen quote? Well,
not Zen quote, but like a deep quote.
Yeah. Well, when you're using a tool, there's a right way and a wrong way to use it. And just like life, sometimes there's a right way and wrong way to do things. And that people have been working on tools for thousands of years. The tools do change quite a bit in how they're constructed and built. But a hammer has been a hammer for quite a while. A saw has been a saw for a while. And an axe has been an axe for a while. So even though the details have changed, the general idea is still the same.
A lot of truth in that.
Yeah. That's good. Hey, listeners, keep hitting us with those questions.
Have we been getting listener questions? Or?
Not yet. I mean, I know. What's going on, people?
Where are you? Am I that uninteresting?
So, I don't think that's the issue.
Here we got one question on here. What kind of tests have you done for dexterity, and can your robot pick up stuff?
I did work on some fingers, 3D printed on jobs, which are, again, they aren't powered, that you gotta, like, pull a little loop in the cockpit on one of the Waldos, and the fingers do move. I haven't tried picking up stuff, but I have, wiggled the fingers, given a thumbs up, that sort of thing. Because of the differential, between the movements of the big fingers and your little fingers, I do have to work it out, but there is, like some movement, but I haven't tried picking up stuff, but I have tried punching stuff.
How'd that go?
Well, I was punching like the face and torso of Judd McStud, and I was actually using probably not a good idea to have inflatable sock'em boppers for a giant robot's fist, but I managed to knock it down. And this is even with the sock'em boppers like flopping around and stuff.
I want to see that. I want to have a mech battle with sock'em. What did you say?
Rock'em sock'em robot.
Sock'em boppers.
Boppers, yes. That would be hilarious. Ooh,
Yeah, like a giant inflatable fist, pretty much.
speaking of weapons, Benny Turtle asked if you can mount a railgun, and I am absolutely behind that.
Well, I do have like two kind of power packs to power some of the auxiliary systems of the mech. Look at me sounding all particular. Auxiliary systems, the camera system, and pretty much one extra. I've got like this weird little like portable power pack. It's like a brand of Weeby top. It's got like a little handle on it, and that I can use to run the optical system. You know, the Raspberry Pi and the monitor. And then I have one of these battery backups. That's like a brand of Cyber Power. It's got like this little screen on it. It has like, yes, you've got so many minutes left of runtime. This is how much current you're pulling and all that sort of fun stuff. And the Cyber Power can actually... I picked up a baseball launcher from Goodwill last summer. And this Cyber Power can run the baseball launcher for, it says, 5 minutes solid on full power. So I could strap a baseball launcher to one of the arms and shoot baseballs out of it at like 50 miles an hour.
Okay. Spitball idea here. A Jaynky conference where there's a workshop, or you have 3 days to build a mech out of Harbor Freight materials.
I'm not sure if they have PVC at Harbor Freight, but yeah.
Or I should say hardware store. Like, just hit the local hardware stores, build a mech, fight it out. That would be amazing. Okay. Now, Jack here is asking a really important question. Do chicks dig it?
Well, that is a good question. When I have gone to some conventions, people... they're like, what is this? What is going on? And then they kind of like take a step back, and then they're like, holy crap, that's a giant robot. And that look of realization, it's like, whoa.
That's priceless. That is priceless.
Yeah.
I feel like if you need to add more puppies, like if you just added if you have it at home holding a giant leash or something.
Unfortunately, I haven't really been taking it out much because I'm trying to get it so it's just right, fully functional. I can just bring it somewhere, hop in it, and go. Well, bringing it somewhere is going to be another challenge on its own. Because I did build it so it could theoretically break down and fit in my van. But the last time I tried that, I didn't have the make the cod piece removable at the time, so I tried putting it in the van, and the cod piece kept it from fitting. So literally, being too well endowed was a bad dick.
Oh, that's funny.
I was so frustrated. I took the piece, which was pretty much nearly the entire cockpit, lifted it up and chucked it across my driver. I was like, darn it.
I think the obvious solution to this is just make it road safe. Just drive it down the road.
Yep.
Drive it to wherever you want to ship it to.
At a full 3.5 miles per hour.
Very fast.
well, just again, outfit it with a V8 engine and just cruise. I feel like if you got pulled over to the cops at that point, I would want to frame that ticket just because.
Yeah, I'm sitting on there driving a giant robot.
Here's another good question. So do you plan on adding sound effects to it?
Well, the thing is, the snowblower engine is kind of loud. So I do actually have a little battery-powered bullhorn, so I can project my voice, but I haven't tried actually, playing sound effects over it to see if it can be heard over the sound of the engine. But I would like to play there's this one guy on YouTube, I don't mean to start doing shout-outs to people without their permission, but
it's cool.
It's like a String Storm. He does like 40K themed metal, and like covers some like a Russian band who also does 40K themed metal. And some of the songs are great. And I'm like, I'd want to play this when driving my giant robot around. It's got like choir backings and like the crunchy guitars and.
Nice.
Oh,
it's like, yes, metal.
My kind of music.
Oh, yeah, that is so cool. So what are the like? What's the end game? What are the ultimate upgrades for this mech?
The ultimate updates would probably making it so it's safe for people to try out. So, I could set up something like a horse ranch, but instead of horses, yeah, you can come in here, $15, 15 minutes, $60 an hour. That's about what a horse riding lessons cost. You can pilot a giant robot, but you also have to sign a liability waiver.
Yes, I would be absolutely down for that.
Do they 100%. Do they get to see the waiver after they pay for it or before?
You get to see it before you pay.
Yeah, something about that seems messed up. I feel like you should pay for it and then see the document that you're signing.
I've done like some other stuff. Like I did indoor skydiving once, and it was like, here's the agreement. If you get hurt, it's not our fault. It's like indoor skydiving. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that once. That was boring. I feel like the point of skydiving is that you go from it's the view and then like the whole experience of like falling down to the earth and parachute. Like it's not the 2 minutes or so of not weightlessness, but free falling.
You actually are going through space and going from a high altitude to a lower altitude. The actual motion.
Yeah,
I didn't really look at it like indoor skydiving. I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna be able to float around, and it's like every single subtle movement of the human body like changes your aerodynamics and changes your position, which is why I'm kind of a favor of if you had like a flying mech fighting a jet fighter, depending on your pilot, a flying humanoid might get some more crazy maneuvers that a jet fighter couldn't keep up with.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
But then again, the jet fighter guys alone suffer from sensory overload just with the jet fighter HUD. So never mind what a humanoid robot would put straight on their system would do.
The question was asked. You should add an AI to it so that you can respond to like, "Hey Marduk, what's the weather outside?" "Hey Marduk, get the newspaper." "Sit, boy." "Shay."
I would love to try to put like some automation from the Raspberry Pi down to like the engine for it. Like put a little slider on the Raspberry Pi and I can like control the engine's throttle. That would be pretty neat.
Yes, that
sort of stuff.
Oh, get like one of those soundboard, one of those old analog soundboards with each lever does a different thing.
Or do like an Internet of Things sort of deal and have like a Dr. Horrible van remote to control a giant robot.
Ooh.
That'd be awesome. That would
control the giant robot with your phone, like Kratos, but actually works.
Driving around with an Xbox controller.
Oh, so wait. In a way, you were able to build a better robot than they were, right?
It does depend on what you mean by better, because I guess technically you could not consider it a robot because it doesn't have powered arms, but
it's definitely cheaper.
Mm-hmm. I've got a bit of a philosophical thing about that. If you'd like to hear some more Zen ponderings,
yes, please do. Hit us.
Yeah. This is going to be a bit of some fun historical stuff. It was Plato who came up with the idea of Platonic ideals, and pretty much what those are is like every culture has got a bed, they've got a house, they even have a dragon. And, they do vary over time, and, vary over culture, but you've got the same general idea. Oh, geez, this is similar to my tool analogy, but you can see where I'm going with this.
Right.
And that you have these hypothetical ideas that are constant across your cultures. A bed has got like a squishy place to put your head, some sort of covering to protect you, even though the materials differ, it's still considered a bed. And these platonic ideals that if something strives not to be like the object of a bed, but strives to be like a bed, in some ways it can be more real than the object itself. So you've got like your sword from the Middle Ages, it's kind of plain and simple, but when you compare a period accurate sword to like one of these fantasy swords that are all the rage nowadays, people prefer the fancy sword over the real deal.
Right.
There's a lot of truth in that.
And see, that's kind of what I'm going for. It's not literally a mech, but it strives to be like the idea of a mech. And in some ways it is more real, but technically not.
I like that.
This was actually in a book that I just read. I just read Jurassic Park for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the thing that they brought up in there, because people didn't... the conflict between Hammond, which is the person that made the whole Jurassic Park, and like the lead scientist was, people don't want actual real dinosaurs. They want something that gives them the idea of something that's better than dinosaurs. But Hammond was very wanting to stick with the real deal versus something that's enhanced to fit people's imagination of what they would like. So they don't really want these bloodthirsty dinosaurs. That,
if I remember right, it was like the dinosaurs were moving too fast, and it was like, no, they got to move slow.
They need to move slow. People think they're going to move slower, so they needed to move slower. Yeah, exactly.
And the reason behind that, wasn't it because it was like more oxygen back then, so they were capable of supporting like these real massive bodies?
Yeah, I think so. Something with like the atmosphere or something of the sort.
Really? Is that like a real thing, or is that just something they made up in the book?
I think that's an actual fact.
Yeah. Actually,
there was more here.
Yeah. Well, you have also a kind of cool thing, like if you look at the research done in Antarctica, since it grows layers of ice at a steady rate, you can actually, when they're drilling down and looking at the ice, what they're really able to do in there is like look at the air pockets that are frozen in the ice, and you can tell what the little snapshots of what the atmosphere was like X amount of years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, that is just, wow. Yeah, I heard that there's a whole, for paleontology, the whole field is opening up because you're having, what used to be third world countries, second or third world countries, they're starting to have actual paleontology programs. So, some Asian country, we're getting fossils from Asian countries, I think some from maybe even Africa. So instead of it just being like Europe and America, we're getting a much more fuller, and so that's why there's just adding so many more species of dinosaurs to the fossil record.
Yeah, good old Pangea.
Heck yeah.
Oh, cool. The talk of dinosaurs actually reminds me of kind of like a little idea I've had about giant robots' alternative methods to making one.
Yeah.
And back in like the 30s, the Russians had some experiments keeping dog heads alive separate from their bodies. And the dog heads they would react to stimuli, like they poke the dog head and the dog head will be like, hey, stop that. And I was thinking you could do the same thing with just muscle. And there's actually this one guy, he's looking into that. He tried putting some muscle in a sucrose solution, but it only lasts so long without oxygen.
Wow.
what you could theoretically do is you make your, like, skeleton, get, like, some meat, you either take it from a cow or do the more humane thing and just take a little bit and vat grow it. And then you could, like, graft it onto the, your metal exoskeleton or ceramic if you want to be fancy, and you could make a meat mech.
Yes.
Well,
That'd be horrifying.
This is sounding like the Terminator really quickly. I just want to point that out.
This is it's really sad. But whenever there's like a global tragedy or like political event or something that goes on, my first immediate thought is, oh, this is becoming more cyberpunk. This is like a sci-fi book. and then I realized, oh, that's terrible. Having a global pandemic of a disease, that's actually a really bad thing. I shouldn't be happy that the world's turning out like a sci-fi book, but at the same time, yes.
Man, I've read a lot of them. I had my previous job, I was doing like data entry, and I got to listen to audiobooks for like 8 hours a day. So I've listened to a lot of sci-fi books, and looking around at the world today, I'm like, holy crap, we're living in sci-fi.
I know.
Like Discord and stuff. It's like crazy. I've literally got nearly the entire sum of human knowledge on a small device in my pocket. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
I didn't get a smartphone until I was I was out of college. And so having the internet in my pocket, I'm like, wow, I can learn so much.
Oh, the possibilities are endless. Wait, so you did data entry while building a mech?
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so I'll just do a quick plug for you. If there's anyone who's looking for someone who can do a job, this guy's built a freaking mech from scratch. So I don't care if it's rocket science, data science. I'm sure he can pick up whatever it is.
It just goes to show you don't have to be a specialist in a specific field to be able to do something that's completely outside of that the field, your normal secular field.
Well, my college education was a little crazy.
How so?
I mean, I started off taking like engineering at Daniel Webster, and supposedly that was like as competitive as MIT, but the entire like semester all we did was build a single sprocket box. It was mostly faffing around with SolidWorks, and I was like, there's no building stuff. And also calculus was just like, nope. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I'm pretty interested in people and how they work, so I took a few semesters of psychology. Thinking about it, I'm like, there's probably a way I could combine like my creative mechanical stuff with like this whole thing about psychology, and it was like, aha, art. Because you can get away with a lot in art.
It's true.
You can duct tape a banana to the wall and it's art.
Until someone eats it, which I think did happen, right?
Yeah, it did happen, and then someone ate the banana. $200,000 banana must have been good.
I hope it was at least still fresh when it was first put up. I'm just thinking, like, after a couple of weeks, it's going to get pretty ripe real quick.
Well, when bananas turn brown, that's when they're the best. Right before they go mushy and they're brown.
Yeah.
You and I have a very different idea of the ideal time to eat a banana.
You can't eat them when they're green. They taste weird.
They are. Yeah.
You can make bananas ripen faster by I've found them ripening faster by just putting them in a dark place for a day, and it's like, oh, yep, they're done. Come here.
Okay. I think we've been going on for almost an hour here.
Yeah.
Probably wrap
right
things
on
up.
it.
Right on an hour? Yes.
Hey.
This was about as enlightening as I thought it would be. Thanks for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
I like having the excuse to geek out about my giant robot.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You've got to keep us updated, keep posting videos. Oh yeah, so if people want to learn more, you can follow his YouTube channel. What's it called?
Green Mountain Mech Works. I'm actually thinking about rebranding, actually, because I've got a surname that's actually a little bit, has some brand recognition, kind of related to giant robots. Because, see, I'm part of the Nye clan, and as you can imagine, there were lots of science guy jokes when I was in school, and I'm thinking, maybe I can capitalize on the Nye recognition.
Yes. Oh.
I'm currently Green Mountain Mech Works, but might be changing to JS Nye Mech Works. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to be doing some consulting with some local business bureaus, see what they think about it. Because if you use your name in your business name, theoretically, you might not have to register. I'm still unsure. Again, that's why I'm getting some, what did I say? Consulting about that.
There you go.
Okay. So stay tuned. Bill Nye the Russian spy. Anyways, so anywhere else that people can go to find you?
I am on Facebook, facebook.com/Green Mountain Mech Works. And I think that's really it. I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to social media stuff. I'm hiding in the wilderness working on the giant robot, so mad scientist in the middle of nowhere.
Same here. My only social media really this Discord. Everything else is just for memes.
The meme dream.
That's what I love about the internet, is that we have access to infinite knowledge. And what do you think we do with for the first time in human history, being able to have this extensive amount of knowledge on our fingertips? You know what we do? We make memes. I mean,
it's a good sign that the most popular videos are cat videos because it's a cute little animal.
Right. All right.
So that's a good sign for society.
We gotta wrap this thing up. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We're Jaynky DIY. Post updates, podcast stuff, memes, all that fun stuff. And if you haven't already, follow us, like us, share us with your friend, share the podcast with your friends, and see you next week. Remember, when you're working your projects, to keep it janky to the max.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Jaynky to the Max. If you like it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you want to suggest more projects that we can feature, make sure to comment down below, or even better, join the Discord server in the description. We try to stream live every weekend on the server, so make sure to join and grab the podcast role if you want to be there and see it for yourself. Anyway, make sure to stay janky.